So we got 5 players here. These are Dakota's favorite draft values and favorite players in the draft based on where they're probably going to be drafted. So your number 5 is a guy I love, Malachi Fields, man. Give it to me.
Yeah, so kind of consider this a way too early, dynasty sort of draft value thought process here. Obviously, we're not going to know where these guys land for another 2 weeks, but once we know that, a lot of this will probably change. But when it comes to Malachi Fields, 6'4", 218, feisty run blocker, smart guy. If you don't know about UVA, really intelligent school. Notre Dame, of course, has its reputation. Do play to both of them. I just see him really as a number 2 option and fitting in really well with the right team. If he continues to slide as his combine numbers, are dissected, I think, his value really opens up for Dynasty. If he falls into day 3, I think in a Dynasty rookie draft, we could get him in the late 2nd. And if for some reason he falls into the 3rd, I think you're trading up and doing everything you can to get him. When you look at his UVA tape, it's a little rough in terms of the quarterback play. It's just inconsistent, inaccurate. And so I'm not going to hit him on that because when I see – what I see is him go up and get balls, and it's crazy athleticism going up to get balls. A little stiff in some of the route running. His route tree is not great. But for a fantasy aspect, the route trees that he runs, post, corners, and goes, those are fantasy. You eat those up in the fantasy world. That's how you score points. And so I want this guy on my team in Dynasty. Looking at an X receiver, I also think he has the potential to be a big slot guy and move around a little bit. This comp, no one's probably heard yet, but I'm looking and thinking a little bit Jalen Coker-ish. Both Virginia guys. Coker's a lot more in that slot role, but both huge verticals, both incredibly strong hands, big bodies, and I think this is a big value piece.
Yeah, and the nice thing about the X receiver piece, which is what he's most likely going to do, at least at first, is there's not many of those guys in this draft. There's a lot of the, I call them bubble boys, the guys that just running like Zachariah Branch, who I do like. Deion Burks is a little more than a bubble boy, but just little short, small, like gadget guys that are explosive, but they're not running big boy routes and they're not tall enough to play X. Where there's only a couple guys, 3 or 4 guys in this draft, and I don't even count Chris Brazzell, he's awful. We're gonna get to him later in the week. He's awful. So Malachi Fields is a very high floor prospect, but I comped him to Kenny Galladay, and Kenny Galladay went to school right down the road from me, NIU, Northern Illinois, played in the MAC, and before he lost his mind and got lazy, that whole Giant, when he got paid with the Giants and just was out of the league, he had a 5-year run. Now you could say it was tied to Matt Stafford, who was a kingmaker at receiver, but like Kenny Galladay was good, and he wasn't overly fast, similar size, similar speed. This is Malachi Fields, and the high pointing is some of the best I've seen. It's the best this year I've seen, and then in a while. And I know Keon Coleman's also another comp. That's my low-end comp. Yep. But Keon Coleman, I think Keon Coleman's good. I think that everything that's happened with Keon Coleman is just between the ears, missing meetings, and just not, attention to detail and being lazy. That's the Keon Coleman thing. And we have no worry with Malachi Fields on that. Malachi Fields is the consummate pro from all reports. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I think Malachi Fields is such a safe prospect, and he's being rated like wide receiver 13 in this class consensus. Yeah. That's too low for a guy that has he's an NFL body. He's huge. He's a monster, and like there's not many of those guys. So I love him.
Yeah, the big play potential's there, I think. And when you're looking for, late round dynasty value, you're looking for guys that are going to find their way onto the field. Well, a feisty run blocker is a guy who's going to make his way onto the field. Guys don't want to block anymore. So when you have a guy who's willing to go out there and do that, he's going to find his way on the field. I do, with the Kenny Galladay take, I actually do potentially like him in a spot like Detroit. They have they have a solid in there, and you could put him out at that X piece. I think that would be a nice little landing spot for him.
Yeah, good real life. I don't know about fantasy because they like Tesla. They traded out to get Tesla. Jamison Williams, though, is known to get suspended and injured. Your number 4, Deion Burks out of Oklahoma. Very small, very explosive. I think he had like 28 bench press reps at 180 pounds. Dude plays really strong. He ran, I don't know exactly, it's like a 4.32. Super fast, super feisty. Why do you love him?
So again, looking for, that late round dynasty value. If you could snag him in the 5th round, I think it's crazy good value in dynasty. We'll find out where he goes, but as he continues to look like a day 3 guy, because he is 5'9", 188. But the stuff stands out to you. A 4.3, 42.5-inch vertical. I like to think a little bit of like a smaller Debo here and kind of use him in the same way. Less of the running back stuff, but more in that get the ball into his hands quick, let him make plays. Freakish 540-pound squat. You mentioned the bench pressing, 23% missed tackle rate. I think and the route running is phenomenal. I think all of this leads to a guy who has the potential to make a team and make an impact. And if you can get him in the 5th round of a dynasty rookie draft, all the values there.
He plays much bigger too. I mean, the size is concerning, but not even the bench press stuff. Like, he plays taller. He high points the ball. He's very aggressive. For that size, usually don't throw up 50-50 balls, but I saw him on tape catch a bunch of those. So definitely a boomer bust prospect, but like what you mentioned with the draft capital that he's probably going to have is probably around 3, I would say, just because that speed is not going to go unseen in this draft.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
All right. Number 3 for Dakota, Casey Concepcion, another one of these guys I love. He's consensus wide receiver 4 in this draft. Wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. Him and Omar Cooper are right next to each other. You have him much higher, or do you have him at consensus, but you just love his fantasy prowess?
I have him, I would say consensus 4. Let's see where he lands. But I think there's a big 3 and he's pushing to maybe make it a big 4. But probably right outside of that. Does he fall in the 1st round? Does he fall in the 2nd round? I don't see him outside of the 2nd round in the actual NFL draft. But I do think, elite separator, right? That crazy versatility. If you look at a guy who is a flat out wide receiver, this is the guy in this class. He'll play all positions. He's a returner. He's a yards after catch guy. One negative though, and probably what keeps him out of that big 3 is he will drop balls 1 in 10, right, at about a 10% rate. Not exciting as you want to level up and get into a tougher spot in the NFL. But I think him being able to play all positions gives that PPR value. If I'm drafting at the 1-5 spot, I'm slamming the button on him all day long if he's there at the wide receiver 4 spot. As you mentioned before, you like the tight ends. I don't. So I have him way ahead of the tight ends in terms of guys I want. And let him fall to the Chiefs, Steelers, Niners, a spot like that. And maybe I do take him ahead of 1-5. So,
where he's most likely going is, I think, a great spot is the Dolphins. They have no one there. And you mentioned that, like, he's elite with the ball in his hands and the returning stuff. He's a weapon. He's just a fucking weapon that you can use anywhere. And let's not forget, as a freshman at NC State, he led his team in touchdowns, but he had an elite all first team season as a freshman, which I really value. A true freshman at 18 years old that comes out and balls out, even at a smaller school. Like, that means that, like, it translated from high school. And then I know it was a little bit rougher later on. Not saying it was rough, but he didn't get better. But he also went to a new school. Like, he was great last year as well. Right. Like, those type of blue chip players, like, you can see the same thing happen in the NFL where he comes in and he actually gets better in the NFL. And, like, I love the versatility and just the ball in his hands. He's the best playmaker in this draft. I am at wide receiver 2 in this class. And I like him more than Lemon, Nate. I don't know why. Lemon is fine. I just feel like he's getting overvalued, and it's strictly because of St. Brown. Everyone's like, oh my God, St. Brown went to USC. He's a smaller, like, shifty player. Like, dude, St. Brown's a 1 of 1. St. Brown is, I hate to use this term, he's a dog. And, like, maybe Lemon is, maybe he is, but, like, he's also tiny with short arms. His film's great. but like I can't guarantee he's gonna be that guy, and I can't with Concepcion either. But he is just much more of an elite playmaker with the ball in his hands. Like you get that guy, in the backfield, you can use him almost as like a shiftier Debo. Not as big, but like he could play everywhere. And like the JSN comp, it's hard because JSN was such a professional coming out with his hands and just being always in the right spot and just never dropping balls. But like a lot of these drops, you go back and watch it, man, there's a lot of concentration issues. And like he even admitted it, and he cleaned it up. He said his point was at the combine, he did all the drills and also did all the pass catching stuff. Didn't drop a single pass. And I think he's not a body catcher, which I like. If it's a body catcher drop situation, that's different. Like this dude is catching with his hands and just like having, routine drops that could be cleaned up. Technique cannot be cleaned up, not in the short term, but that kind of stuff, I feel like could be cleaned up. And if that's his negative, I love it. I will say one negative thing about him, one negative player comp is Kadarius Toney. That he could be Kadarius Toney, and Kadarius Toney had a nice like 8-game stretch with the Giants. It was elite. He was like a must start in fantasy. He was blowing the world up, and then he fell off the face of the earth. And that guy, I don't think Concepcion is that much of a knucklehead that Kadarius Toney is.
As a Gator fan, Kadarius Toney was definitely had some alarming traits, to say the least. I think Concepcion, I think you're spot on, right? He could easily be the number 2 guy in this class. I'm hesitant to put him there a little bit because some of these other guys have that higher profile coming into college than he did. Doesn't necessarily mean anything, but let's see where they go. Let's see how the NFL relates to them, because that's going to tell us a lot about how they're going to use him in fantasy. So I think he could easily be 2.
All right, number 2, my boy Emmett Johnson. I think you're the only one in the world that's high on Emmett Johnson besides myself. Out of Nebraska, was slow starting his career, and then last year just went bonkers. And the film's great. The combine was bad, though. Another one of these guys that just disappointed the combine and did everything. He did everything, and it was to his detriment, honestly.
Yeah, so I think for me, the guys that don't perform at the combine are some of those guys you're going to find that value in, right? So that's why he's going to be up here at number 2 for me. I think he's doing everyone almost 300 touches last year. The durability's there. What do you want in a guy who the NFL is going to take, late 3rd, early 4th? You want durability. You want a guy who can catch the ball, who can run with the ball, who can stay on the field. So I think if he falls into that day 3 pick, 4th round, his dynasty value could fall a little bit further. He's probably going mid to 2nd round in dynasty. Someone might be wild like me and Rob and push, end of the 1st round for him because he is a running back and he potentially has that spot where he falls in the draft. So we'll see. But definitely feel like there's not a lot of, firepower. I'm going to look maybe for a guy who I think has a higher floor. And I think if he's in the right spot, this is the guy.
Yeah, I think I had a couple comps, and I'm trying not to cool on the guy just based on what everyone else thinks. I want to stick to my guns, and I appreciate you liking him. And his film is awesome. Now he's not a breakaway runner. He gets a little happy with his feet dancing wise, but I think his low end comp is a guy like Devin Singletary, which sounds really unsexy, but I'm saying that's his low end. He's shiftier than Devin Singletary, but Singletary had a pretty nice career. He's hung around, and we're talking about a potential day 2 prospect, end of 2nd, early 3rd rounds. We'll see how much the NFL teams value the combine so much. That's the worry. And it's like, he would have been way better off not testing at all because his film speaks for itself in my mind. But these guys get enamored with size, speed things. Like it's the Mike Washington Jr. thing where it's like Emmett Johnson's film so much better than Mike Washington's film. But Mike Washington's 225 and he ran a 4.33. And it's like, well, now he's so much better than Emmett Johnson. Like he's not, because I watched them both play football. And yeah, if you get Mike Washington in the right system, if he goes to Kyle Shanahan and then he's the number 2 there, it's Raheem Mostert 2.0. But if he goes to a wasteland and a bad situation, he's going to be a guy that's just inefficient and just has bad vision, where Emmett Johnson's a pro. Like he's already a pro in my mind coming in. I hope he goes to the Vikings. I think the Vikings is a great spot because currently they have Aaron Jones as their, essentially their starter, but more of their, 3rd down back. And then They have your boy as the leading, as Jordan Mason as the banger, and neither of those guys are very good. Aaron Jones at this point of his career is not very good, and also just can't stay healthy. But Emmett Johnson has a chance to fight for that role from day one, and also he's a unique prospect that's a great pass catcher that can handle the workload, so he can kind of be the handcuff for both guys, right? He can play the early down role. If you get Jordan Mason hurt, and if Aaron Jones gets hurt, guess what? He is now your third down back. So that's why he's really valuable for me, because there's not many true 3 down besides Jeremiah Love guys that I trust catching the ball. And then the guys that trust catching the ball just aren't going to be, seeing the field first and second down. So I feel like that's what people are overlooking when they're ranking him so low. It's like, yeah, maybe he's not the best at anything. I think he has the best feet and best vision in the class, which matters to me as a running back, because that's very important. But it's wild to hate on this guy. And his story mentions that it's a 1 year of production and he couldn't beat out other guys. You know what? Like, I'm looking at last year's film. And I don't know the reason he couldn't see the field as a sophomore. I don't know, but the numbers are awesome. The production's awesome. The film's awesome. And I love the vision. And I just think he's a day one plug and play guy. He doesn't have, I don't think he's ever going to be an all pro player, but I think he can make some Pro Bowls.
Yeah, for sure. I think he can fit a dynasty need, add some depth, right? What I'm looking for. He had 39 receptions as a sophomore. Didn't had 100 less carries, 125 less carries. So obviously didn't have 1,500 yards rushing. But I think the Vikings makes a lot of sense. He can learn from two guys that sort of are like him in a sense, and his body style and how he can fit and play. I like that landing spot for sure. Again, looking for depth pieces. I'm probably going to lean towards, if I can get Emmett Johnson, let's say we can get Emmett Johnson around late in the Dynasty rookie draft than a Price from Notre Dame, I'm going to lean Johnson. Not going to take a flyer on a guy like Price who couldn't find the field. If you're such a great prospect, why are you sitting behind a guy? Why aren't you going somewhere else? Number two, why are you coming out? Now the backfield's yours next year. Why are you coming out as a junior with no reps? Because you're going to buy into the tape that you have. So I'm not high on Price. I know a lot of guys are. I'm going to stay away from a guy like that for sure.
Oh, I despise Price, and for many reasons. Like you mentioned, like he couldn't see the field. And why didn't you transfer? And I think in his mind, it's like, this is a weak running back class, at least weak on the high end. And like next year is going to be better. It has to be better because it can't be any worse. Yeah. And yes, he might be able to increase he should be able to increase his capital, but like, would he be RB2 next year? Even if he goes bonkers this year, probably not. So that's a little concerning as well. He's not betting on himself, but you get told by your agent and then people in your camp, you're going to be a second round pick and the second running back off the board. You just take that. And I always bring up the Roschon Johnson thing, which is the most accurate parallel of all time. Now, we don't know if it's going to turn out like that. And then also for fantasy, the other worry is he is an elite kick returner. I'm not trying to say he's not, but like you don't get points for kick returns in fantasy. So that's just less snaps he'll see on offense. If he's kick returning, every kick return he's out there and he gets 4 or 5 a game, like that's a touch. And that's a dangerous touch. So you're likely to get hurt. And they want to keep you fresh for that. So he's never going to be a true lead running back in my mind. And maybe Emmett Johnson won't either, but I also know Emmett Johnson is probably the best pass catching running back in this class, at least one that can handle a workload. Yeah. And that plays, man. I know like NFL teams don't always value that, but we do as fantasy players.
Yeah, 100%. 100% agree.
All right. You're number one, Jordan Tyson. The guy is always in the medical tent. Are you concerned, or are you just saying the talent's too good and you're going to look past the bevy of injuries he had at college?
Yeah. So, right. That's the elephant in the room, the durability. That's the issue. Let's say that durability isn't here. This guy is by far and away the number one wide receiver in this class without a question. So when it comes to the dynasty, when it comes to the talent and trying to build a team and trying to hit home runs, this is the kind of guy I want. He's a big-time X receiver. He can handle high volume and draws high volume because his route running is phenomenal. He might be the best route runner in the last few years. So let's keep him on the field. I get it. But I think if he stays on the field, he's far and away the guy. He's my number one guy in this class. If for some reason you're in a a rookie draft and he's sitting at 1-4, heaven forbid he's at 1-5, trade up. Don't even hesitate. Come get this guy and put him on your team because the ceiling is so high.
I love him. My confirm is Keenan Allen, a smaller Keenan Allen, a little shiftier version of Keenan Allen. And like, that's some rarefied air because that guy just caught passes, right? He was just always open. The only worry is that play style is dangerous in the NFL, even in this day and age, like going over the middle, taking those hits. And it wasn't just the biggest concern. I'm just going to play devil's advocate. And I also have Jordan Tyson, the number one receiver, because I don't feel like there's a lot of high-end guys outside of a guy we mentioned, Concepcion, who has some risk to his profile. I'm not a Tate guy, and Lemon I'm fine with, but he is by far the most talented guy. And if I'm going to take a guy in the first round in the top 15, especially, I'm shooting for the moon. Now I know that it could be bad because you want your guy to be on the field, but it's not just the soft tissue stuff, which is very alarming. That stuff tends to linger. Look at a guy like Christian Watson, who just, Ricky Pearsall, right? Like once they start having these soft tissues, like it just becomes an epidemic. But the broken collarbone, I'll give him a pass on because that's a freak play. But he's also tore up his knee a couple times. So now you have multiple ligaments in the past. Like it's not just one type of injury. So that's the concern. But like, I'm shooting for the moon here, and it's not going to be a top 10 pick because I think a lot of teams are scared off by the medicals. People love Tate. People love Lemon. People love Omar Cooper. So like, would it surprise you if he ended up going wide receiver 4 in this class?
It surprised me, but it would not surprise me if he goes off the board at number 9. He goes to Kansas City, and I can tell you right now, I have 1-2 in a dynasty draft. I will not even be hesitating. Within a second of coming on the clock, I'll be hitting the button, taking him at 1-2 if he ends up pick 9 to Kansas City. I think he fits really well into that space and that offense. So, I'm huge on the guy because of all the things you said. Lemon's not the guy, and maybe he's a good, solid 10, 12-year player, Lemon. Tate, it's up and down. We've seen guys hit. We've seen guys miss out of Ohio State. And Concepcion has his questions as well. I'm a Tyson guy. Give me him all day long.
All right, I have my list of 5 guys. I do want to put a graphic up here. I'll show you Michael Jackson first. Hello, Michael. Look at that. Look at that mutant. Look at that hideous creature. The movie's coming out, dude. The Michael's coming out here in a couple weeks. You gonna check it out?
Yeah, it's funny you said that. I looked at the theater listing today. I thought maybe it was this week. I guess maybe it's next week. But yeah, I'll probably pop
They moved it back because there's some issue. I don't know. You know how it is. It's Michael Jackson. Right. There's like litigation stuff and.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Did you see Leaving Neverland? Did you see that one? The real Michael Jackson movie?
So, again, man, I did not know. I'm never a big fan of hearing people go on for the potential to make money because I can't trust it one way or the other. So I don't know, right? I did mention to you in the chat at one point, lots of high profile kids who were scared and running for their lives, supposedly child actors, all swear by MJ and said he was saving them and he was taking them to Neverland. And that story sounds like it makes a lot more sense today than it did 15 years ago. But again, wasn't there. I just hope everybody's safe and protected, I guess, so that's kind of
my thing is let's just take a look at this creature. Now if there was ever a picture to be next to the word pedo in the dictionary, this is it, right? Like, I'm just saying, this is it. Like, this guy right here, with those decisions, with that face. And I just go back to I don't necessarily trust the 2 guys that didn't Leaving Neverland. I don't trust them. And a lot of people say why they come out now. If you know anything about victims, they sometimes never come out. Like the percentage of people that actually share their story is like 10 to 20%. Like it's just it's a rough part for them. They want to leave it in the past. It's not actually therapeutic. It doesn't work. I'm saying that's just human nature. But the fact remains that these 2 boys documented were having sleepovers with Michael Jackson every single night. But one of the 2 of them was in his bed every single night for 2.5 years. Like, that's a fact. Now, whether anything inappropriate went down, which I would bet something